botanical evangelist and I'm looking for converts, and I know I have somebody over here who kind of walked in the door with his praise arms up. So I feel like I've already halfway won you over. So there you go. So I hope that learning some of these stories will inspire awe and wonder and just plain make you say, gee whiz. So with that, let's go on. So here you are out here on this island. And I've found that most islands have beloved characters. Some are beautiful, some mysterious, some tough as nails, and some very complicated. And so I encourage you to think of the flora in the same way. There's a cast of characters, and there are some that are kind of easy to understand, and others that have more of a sense of mystery. Even though you know they're there, you don't really know what's going on with them. So here's some stories of familiar plants. I do want you to know that there will be graphic discussions and images of plant sex. The world being what it is.
The trigger warning.
It's a trigger warning. If you need to leave, I will judge you, but there you have the opportunity. So let's start with this one. This is twin flower, and it is probably still blooming now. It is a early to midsummer bloomer. It smells like heaven. And it's only about 6 inches tall. So I encourage you to all get flat on your bellies and smell these pink flowers. If you do that, you might even see on the parts that actually hold the petals, you'll see these structures, and they're what botanists call stipitate glands. It just kind of means hairs that have an oil-filled ball on top. And that's those oily glands tend to be part of what conveys the scent. So, but unless you get right down there on your belly, you are going to miss out on that. And I'm going to say that's a little impressive right there. We also, when we think about twin flower, Linnaea borealis, it was named for Carl Linnaeus. His original name was Carl von Linné, a Swedish botanist, and he's the person that brought us binomial nomenclature, the two-parted name, the genus and species. Now, people had undoubtedly been classifying plants since before there was language. It'll kill you, it won't kill you, it's tasty, it's not tasty. But when people started moving around, there really wasn't a good way. And even when people started doing science with plants, there was no unified way to talk with people from other places, because some people called that twin flower, somebody else might have called it pink bells, somebody might have called it summer mat. They were all talking about the same thing and not using the same name. But with this binomial Latinized system, if I write to a botanist in China, they are going to understand Linnaea borealis. They're not going to call it twin flower. If I write to somebody in South America, they will understand Linnaea borealis. So it's a unified language. And Linnaeus was the first one to base the classifications on shared reproductive structures. Does the flower have 5 petals or 4 petals or 20 petals? And different things about the reproductive structures were used to develop systems of finding relationships. And even though he was alive in the 18th century, almost all of his classifications have held up. So I particularly love any country who features a botanist on their currency and botanical imagery. So this is a 100 kroner Swedish banknote. So you might not have known those things about twin flower, but now when you see it, you can recall some of this information. Saw this today. Poison ivy. What you might not know is that it's in anybody know what plant family it's in? You ready? The cashew family. The cashew family. Yeah, you were close in a way. They're both nuts. Yeah. So you got it. So it's in the cashew family. And another thing that's in the cashew family are mangoes. And if you travel to the tropics and see mangoes growing wild, you want to be a little careful about rushing off to grab one, because the wild types have a lot of hairs on them that have the same substance as poison ivy. The cultivated mangoes that we get in the store are nice and smooth, and we don't get skin rashes, but all in the same family. So has anyone noticed over time that they're seeing more poison ivy on the island than they used to? So this climbing one, Toxicodendron radicans, is expanding its northward range. It used to be restricted to areas farther south, the mid-Atlantic. And as the climate warms, it's getting comfortable farther and farther north. You know what else it really loves besides warmth? CO2. Yeah. What are we getting more and more of? CO2. And scientists have done experiments where they have specialized tents, and they put the plants in the tent, and then they can pump any concentration of CO2 they want into that tent, and they look at how quickly or slowly the plant grows, how it responds, and they kind of can't max out the CO2 that poison ivy thrives on. So the more we get in our atmosphere, man, the better this poison ivy is just going to love it. So if we haven't done anything about climate change yet, here's another reason to maybe think about it. And then I just wanted to tell you the name of the oil that causes the skin rash in poison ivy. It's urushiol. No quiz at the end. Okay, so now on to some plant sex. Here's another one that grows on the island. Has anyone seen it here? Jack in the pulpit. So Jack in the pulpit, Erisma triphyllum. We need to talk a little bit about, just a very little bit, about the flower structure. The flowers are on separate plants. So some of the flowers produce eggs, and if they're pollinated, they will produce fruits. And some of the plants have male flowers that produce pollen and will not produce fruits, but they contribute to fruit production. Everybody with me so far? Okay. For Jack in the pulpit, it turns out that size does matter. The picture here is a plant that is in fruit, meaning that many of the flowers were pollinated and they're producing separate fruits. It's expensive to make eggs and fruits. It takes a lot of energy. It doesn't take that much energy to produce pollen. So plants that are small are male. The first years of reproduction are male, and they produce pollen. And when that rhizome gets kind of bulked up and they can afford the investment, then they switch sexes and they become fruit producing. But wait, then if a deer comes by and munches off that protein rich flower, it knocks the plant back. So guess what it does? Reverts to male until it bulks up enough again, and then it can produce fruits. So that is part of Jack in the Pulpit's story. I feel like sedges do not get nearly enough attention in the world. And this one gets even less attention than most sedges because it's about this tall. For the Zoom audience, that's like 3 inches, I would say. So, and then the flowers are buried at the bases of these rosettes. So the flowers and the fruits are pretty much at ground level. The whole point of making fruits is to create progeny and then disperse them. I don't know about you, but I look at those seeds that are like just sitting almost on the ground on the parent plant. I'm feeling like those young are not going to go very far from home, right? If gravity's just going to, when they're ripe, gravity's just going to, like, they're going to keep living with their parents. Not the best strategy, because if the habitat changes and it's not hospitable to that plant, then the whole line gets killed off. So what is going to happen? Well, in the case of this sedge, it has oil bodies, big hunks of oil. These are all different kinds of seeds. The sedge achene looks most like this, but these golden things that you see are just kind of appendages that are filled with calorie-rich oil. You know who likes that? Yes. So those are called eliosomes, and the ants go grab those seeds and carry them away from the parent plant before they eat them. And they often take them to their galleries underground. So they're like pre-planting the seeds. Right? Okay, so let's stay with seeds for a moment. Bayberry also grows on Monhegan, and you can see that the berries are whitened, and probably a lot of us have heard about bayberry candles, and back in the day or tonight on Monhegan, people might have wanted a bayberry candle. It took bushels of berries to get a single candle, because they would melt, put the berries in water, bring it up to a boil. The wax would dissolve off the berries, let the water cool, and then you skim the wax off the top. But again, waxes are fats. And so animals, and we're animals, fats are very attractive to us. We like them, and most animals do. So, okay, that's a good strategy. You coat your fruit with something animals like, they're going to disperse the fruits very well. Turns out, though, that not that many birds can digest those waxes, but this one can. And Kristen, is there another one?
That's the
classic. Yeah, so this is a yellow-rumped warbler. Some people might know them as myrtle warblers. This one can digest the seed, so it's a good partnership. They can benefit from eating the seed, and then they poop out the seeds and wherever they've flown to, so it disperses the seeds well. And you don't have to take Kristen's or my word for it, because our friend Ryan Pfeiffer took a picture of one of these warblers actually eating the bayberry seeds. So there's a relationship between animals and seed eating and plant seeds.
So when the birds eat the seeds, they're actually digesting that covered with the seed itself.
They're digesting the wax, and then their digestive acids also tend to, it's called scarify the seed coat, which readies it for germination. And if they're defecating the seeds come pre-packed in that little fertilizer capsule. But wait, there's more. Okay, I didn't see this one today, but we weren't really in hardwood. Okay. So witch hazel. The common name, and you note that I'm giving you the Linnaean name with each one. But the common name witch hazel, I think comes from the fact that these twigs, witch hazel tends to grow in semi-moist areas, and dowsers, the people that used to and still do look for water and tell you where to drill your well, often used witch hazel twigs as their dowsing twig. So I think that's where that common name comes from. So here we can see a witch hazel with flowers. You can see those yellow petals. And here's one in full flower. See all those yellow petals? What else do you notice? What time of year is it? There's one species that does flower in the very early spring. Ours flowers in the fall, and in my family, something we do on Thanksgiving is put the turkey in the oven and then go take a walk in the cold air and view the witch hazels. Yes, that's my idea. They usually come with me. View the witch hazels, and then you know how good it smells when you come back in after the cold. That's better than eating the turkey. That's not. So, all right, wait a minute. There are flowers with petals. Why do flowers have petals? To attract insects, to attract pollinators. Okay. Let's now talk about November and May. Where are the pollinators? You don't see a lot of bee activity on Thanksgiving. And you don't see a lot of beetle activity, very few flies. Could be bird pollinated, but it needs a pollinator. And it's definitely, those petals are advertising for a pollinator. And you think, oh, okay, this is gonna be a sad story for witch hazel, doing this in May, like play taps, but no. There's a group of moths, they're owlet moths, and they have the ability to heat themselves up by doing this tremendous shivering. So during the day, they're like in the leaf duff around the witch hazel. And then when it's time for them to fly at night, they start shivering, and they can do it so effectively that they can raise their body temperatures by as much as 50 degrees. And then they fly, and then they go after the nectar and pollinate the witch hazel. There's a lot going out there. All right. There's a lot going on out there that like nobody necessarily tells us. And maybe they should, I don't know. So we talked a little bit about dispersal with some of the other species, and with witch hazel, the plants that were flowers that were pollinated in November are starting to ripen their seeds now. And as if we get a mass of dry air at some point, it will start to shrink. So here's a pollinated flower that's seeds are maturing in there. And as they dry, there are some seams in the capsule that pop open on a dry day when it's time to release the seeds, and they do it all at once. And it can sound almost like a gunshot in the woods, and they don't depend on birds to fly their seeds away. They catapult them themselves, and the seeds coming out of those capsules can go up to 30 feet from the tree.
Wow.
And you can, I mean, you can actually hear this happen. Like normally, I guess when an apple tree drops its fruit, you can kind of hear a thump. But like when your snapdragons get ready to volunteer for the next year, they just kind of open up and it's more like this. It's not explosive. So that is witch hazel. Here's one. Let's stick with dispersal for a little moment. Sea rocket, it grows along the shore. It's in the mustard family. It's actually not bad in a salad. It's little tangy, little salty. So if you mix some of these leaves in with other greens, they taste kind of good. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Here are the fruits on sea rocket. They look kind of like hot air balloons. They look kind of puffed up, don't they? Mm-hmm. That's because they are water dispersed. So I told you that this grows along the shoreline, grows, right at the head of the head of the tidal reach. Yes. And so as the seeds mature, the capsule puffs up, and then you can see where it breaks off from the plant. And both the fruits and the seeds inside are capable of floating. So depending on where the currents are going, rather than, dropping right next to the parent plant, they might be going to other islands. And this is one that Darwin experimented with. I can't remember the book that came out about 10 years ago that talked a lot about the experiments Darwin did at home, including like he wanted to know how long some ocean dispersed seeds would be viable. So he killed some kind of seagull, opened up its stomach, put the seeds he wanted inside, sewed it back up, put it in the bathtub, filled the bathtub up, and then kept monitoring it. Okay, raise your hand if you've ever had a dead bird floating in a bathtub. It's like 3, 4, 5 months, 6 months. These seeds are viable for a long time. Yeah, I don't like Darwin. All kinds of respect. Don't want to be his roommate. So, but there are some seeds that are water dispersed, and in fact, this one is not only tolerant of water, but it's tolerant of salt, which is toxic to most plant tissues. So you have that one all along your shore here. Okay. Quaking aspen, or some people call it trembling aspen. This one, how many people are bird watchers here? 1, 2, 4. Yeah, okay. So some of you do bird by ear. You listen to calls. Have you ever botanized by ear? Like how? Exactly. In this genus, the stick that holds the leaf to the twig is called the petiole. And check me on this, like tomorrow while you're walking around, or you have a headlamp, you can do it tonight. On almost every species, the petiole is round. And on all populous species, the petiole is flattened. So it's almost like a ribbon. and there's a little twist. And when populus, so that's cottonwoods and aspens. There's some other poplars, non-native ones. Any one of them, when the wind blows anything in this genus, you get this business. And you can be walking through the woods and without even looking up, these are species that you can botanize by ear. So just in my mind, I kind of thought, all right, how much difference could that flattened petiole really make? Like, the round one's pretty skinny, and this is pretty skinny. How much difference could it makes? The physics is completely different. The wind movement around the leaves is completely different. And so you can actually botanize by ear with this genus. Again, go out and try it. So we've talked about sexual reproduction a little bit with some of the other species. Something besides, in addition to the flattened petiole, populus, it flowers, but its seeds are only viable for about 10 days. So if they don't get to appropriate habitat and have enough rain or whatever they need to germinate, if they don't do that within 10 days, that's it, they're done. So the insurance policy in populus is to do a lot of asexual reproduction. And they do what's called cloning. So, here's the parent tree, and then the parent tree sends a rhizome under the ground or like an underground stem, and then sends up another trunk, and then sends up another trunk. And so the area that's encircled or outlined in green there is all a single individual.
Oh, wow.
So does that make sense? It's one genotype that's done this for a long time. So this individual has been named Pando. It's located in Utah and is considered the largest organism ever found on Earth thus far. It occupies 108 acres, which is almost 82 football fields. That's a big organism. It also is really helpful for people, I think, to think about cloning in a different way than we usually think about it now. Most often, I think we hear the word cloning and we go, not a good idea, not a good idea. Think about that. It's a natural process. Cloning just means the same genetics. So anytime, I don't want to shock you, and maybe you're going to pull down your shades so neighbors don't see. Anytime you take a cutting from your houseplant and root it, and you're all proud of yourself, you've cloned. And I think it's really helpful for us to think about something in a different way. And this is for me this is a case of that. So, oh wait, maybe I'm not against it. Okay, let's talk about what you mean. So that is Pando, the trembling aspen.
Bananas are also very cloned, right?
Yes, there's absolutely no genetic diversity, and if you like bananas, we're in some serious trouble. Because no, we are. Okay, if the worldwide genetics are identical and some disease like picks up on that and attacks one, they're all going to be susceptible. And that is happening with bananas. And we have, through cultivation, we have eliminated a lot of the wild types. So there's like nothing to work with now for breeding. So eat them up. It's not last call yet, but the banana situation, it is kind of interesting. Okay. Okay. All right. So let's return to sex for a wrap up before we go to questions. This is the pink lady slipper, beloved by many people. Lots of times people have learned this plant because somebody older and wiser has shown it to them and said it's special. And it, of course it's special, it's plant. And before we then talk about what makes it sexually interesting, let me just do the comparison. So most often we see plants arranged like this lily, where the pollen is held in stamens made up of a filament and an anther. So does that look familiar? This style look familiar to people? Okay, orchids have eliminated this business, and they take all their pollen and compress it into two sort of wing-like structures that are fused together. And then they have an adhesive pad on the bottom. So if you're a pollinator and you walk by those things, that adhesive pad is going to stick to you. All right, back to the lady slipper. Okay, so again, next spring, check me on this, go look for this. Here's the entry way for a bumblebee who's the pollinator. The bumblebee goes in this entry slit. It wanders around in the flower, and there are upward pointing hairs that kind of guide it up toward the sex parts. And here's the bumblebee is trying to emerge from the flower. And here the bumblebee, in number 7, the bumblebee has exited the flower. Everybody picturing this?
Yeah.
Okay. So as it exits, the pollen sacs are located here, and right interior to the pollen sac is where the pollen, right near there, is where the pollen needs to land to fertilize the flower. So the bee goes in here, it hangs out in there for a while, figures out how to get out, gets the pollen stuck to its back, goes to the next flower in the bunch, and as it does the same thing, those pollinia stuck to its back rub up onto the female part and get stuck there, and that's how the pollination happens. Wow. I know, there is so much going on out there. Why, how can we all even like go to work anytime? When there's other stuff we should be looking at. Maybe I just won't. I don't know. Part of it. So go forth, observe, discover more stories, make sure to pass them on, and thank you for your patience this evening. Somebody can do you have any Zoom questions, or should we do
room questions I'm going to ask right now.
Okay, so room questions, anyone have? Yes.
Initially in your talk, you referred to different types living on this island. And you talked about the sign types and the chimp.
Uh-huh.
I'd like to do a shout out to one fairy.
Okay. Yes.
I think it's compliment. He was an ornithologist.
But we don't hold that against him.
Yeah. And a good one. And he was a botanist. He took back to your original slide, the structure of the plant that you shared in the original slide. He took hundreds of photographs using macro photography
Oh, fun.
to bring out the bee's eye view.
Uh-huh.
And
It's a way we don't
yeah.
normally look. Yeah.
It's the way we don't normally look. I don't know what happened to those, all those images.
Where we slice through something like a tube.
Yes, and you
could see all of the arrangement.
Yeah, they had some, but I think the bulk of this might be some other university.
but that is, but we can all do that on our own scale. You know, you can, if you're willing to sacrifice one blossom from a lilac inflorescence, you can do that, and you don't even need the macro. If you have a way to magnify,
You can turn your binoculars.
you can turn your binoculars around, and so you can kind of go, oh, that's what's going on. Or, you know, if you do the same thing with when the apples are flowering and you slice one of those flowers lengthwise, and so you have a cross section of the ovary. And then you do the same thing with an apple, or you do a cross section this way, that, you know, how when you slice your apple across the equator, you have that star thing. You get the same thing if you do that with the flower before it becomes the fruit. Yeah.
What the museum does have is the movie. They have a movie of the players. But they also have, that should be brought forward.
Somebody's writing that down.
Can you repeat it for the Zoom people? I couldn't even hear what Jim was saying.
Jim was talking about Tom Martin, and that he was a birder and a botanist and took fabulous macro images of plant parts, and yeah, from kind of the bee's eye view. Yes.
Have you read the book?
I'm a co-author on a flora, and then I'm a co-author on the sedges of Maine, which was not a huge seller. The people that care about sedges love it, though.
But if you were my biology teacher, I could tell you I would not have failed the course. You did this very.
Thank you. Nobody should. Nobody, yeah. Okay, so let's see, yeah, see, my feeling on this is if you cannot explain, I don't care if you're a molecular biologist, if you cannot explain it to a kindergartner, then keep your mouth shut. You have nothing to say. It's my feeling. Do we have more? Yes,
The rocket flower you showed?
yes.
So
See,
is that related to arugula? Is it a form of arugula?
they're all, yes, thank you. The sea rocket, is it related to arugula? They are all in the mustard family, the Brassicaceae, along with broccoli, cabbage, other things we like. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Wild rat.
The wild radish is also in the mustard family. Yep, it's very diverse family. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and horseradish, yeah, and adapted to everything from sea level to their alpine mustards. Yeah, up above tree line.
Yeah, I had a sort of follow-up question regarding sea rocket.
Yes.
As someone who took great pleasure in cultivating my own little patch of wood sorrel, do you have any tips on finding and growing like seed pods from sea rocket?
Yes, thank you. The question is, do I have any tips for collecting seed and cultivating sea rocket? it's actually pretty easy to grow. I don't think it needs, I don't even know that it needs a cold period. A lot of our plants here in the northern regions need to have something either winter or something that approximates that, so you can put it in your refrigerator and it's some hundred number of hours, some at 40 degrees or less, so you can pretend that winters happen just by putting them in the fridge. I don't even think Sea Rocket needs that. I would say definitely well-drained soil. And
Yes,
don't
I-
collect.
we're
don't
just
collect
about
the,
finished, yeah.
capsules until they're looking like they're
all right.
kind of drying out on their own.
And I'll
Yeah.
we'll do your eye drops,
Yeah.
come back.
Thank you.
Claire,
We had a question, are invasive species increasing because of climate change?
well, so it depends what the species is. There are some species, I was talking with Kristen about one today, that's called Japanese stilt grass. We know it from farther south. I think maybe there's been a record in Maine. But we've been watching the northward movement of this non-native invasive grass, and it's very invasive. It pushes out any native on the forest floor. So that one probably is moving northward with warming temperatures. But a lot of the other ones, I don't see any clear evidence of that, but not all invasives have been subjected to those studies that I told you about with the CO2 chambers, and so we don't know what the response would be. Yeah, to either warming or CO2.
Would that be the same for kudzu?
Ha! Excuse me. We are looking, I personally am looking south and thinking, not gonna be a little, like, if you have any outbuildings you care about, like, keep them clear, because the kudzu will, yeah, I think actually it is increasing its range. It's pretty sure, anybody here from New York State? Yeah, yeah. No. Oh, man, if there was an argument for blowing up the Kittery Bridge. No, but it would, fewer would do it and it would take longer.
No more questions.
No more questions online, yes.
And poison ivy, anything, we know it likes CO2 and it likes the warmer weather, anything.
Well, you know what
What
else?
to get rid of it or to reduce it.
What about oats?
I like it. Yeah, you know what else it likes though? The salt spray. There are a lot of minerals in the ocean spray. So I saw some today, and I mean, we saw some away from the spray zone, but it was much thicker. I'm from Mount Desert Island, and one of our larger stands along the Park Loop Road is within the spray zone. Nice flat rocks. People love to picnic there. I actually, I mean, you know, better living through chemistry. Like if you really need to get rid of, and some people are incredibly allergic. You know, herbicides that will, but
We made it back in the real herbicides.
yes. You mean on your preserves? Yeah, the cutting is better, it's way better than the burning. Plus that urushiol is airborne and smoke. Yeah, you don't want to do that.
What about covering up and just getting all the roots you can out with digging tools?
You know, if you have people that are willing to do the covering up is pretty effective. And The thing is, as is true with most of the invasives, it's an ongoing, like you have to be ever vigilant. So there's never a point where you go, okay, we got that. It's taken care of. No, there's gonna be a sneaky one that you need to like be ever vigilant. But yeah, that's covering up with cardboard. The question was, would it work to cover poison ivy with landscape cloth, plastic, carpet, cardboard? Yes, so, yes, probably pretty effective, maybe not too practical where most of your poison ivy is.
Are we the only species that are affected by the oil?
That I do not know. Oh, are we the only species that is affected by the oil? Are we the only species that gets the dermatitis? I do not know that. I will find out, because now I want to know.
Well,
Never
I
used-
had a thought.
Never used to bother our dogs. I mean, they could run through it and then pat them and, yeah.
If I'm remembering correctly, the way that urushiol works is that it has to form a bond with some of your skin cells. And maybe the reason that your dogs might not have been infected is because they have layered hair covering.
Yeah,
their
yeah.
skin, whereas we just have skin,
Yeah,
so.
Yeah.
That could be.
but I mean, I don't think bird feet get, yeah,
No,
do you
but
know?
No, it's fine, it's.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And chemically, yeah, that makes sense.
Like this.
I guess everything else has their own things.
Just thinking, I'm thinking through letting the hard drive spin for a minute. Yeah. Right, yeah. 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 Yeah, no, and they're good, that's. Poison ivy fruits are very good for migrating birds. Much better than the non-native invasive fruits in terms of nutritive value, so there's that. There's that.
Is poison ivy native to Monhegan or? Oh, no one brought it.
It's native to North America, and so it's moved, I mean, it could have come in somebody's horticultural pot or something that I don't know, but it is native to North America, so.
Over the King of the Bridge.
Well, yes. Yeah. Yeah,
I think it has a wonderful example of that plant spread with the Japanese knotweed. Which, there's a. Getting on the road, just down Berkeley here, which, is spread by excavators.
snowplows on the mainland, snowplows. You can see the movement from year to year
Carrying it to the island.
with,
Road and soil, traffic problem.
yeah, and you know, that one, you almost have to admire it a little bit. So we're talking about knotweed as an invasive, and some studies were done in the UK probably 15 years ago. And they, first of all, they inventoried it, and there was not a single square kilometer that didn't have a population of knotweed over. And so then they said, well, how much knotweed does it take to make more knotweed? Like if you cut, how big a piece can you leave in the soil before it's unable to sprout again? And they took a thing that's kind of like a miniature deli slicer that we use to make thin sections of tissues, plant or animal. So very thin, like a couple microns thick. And it was like tissue culture. As long as there was a few cells left in the soil, it would reach, but you kind of have to respect it. Like, it's a survivor. Um, She says yes.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, we're lucky in that.
Yes, it just does its own thing. It's kind of. But listen. Bees love it.
Bees do love it. And it doesn't smell bad. And it's actually quite tasty in the spring when it's first coming up, those little spears. When it's first coming up, yeah, you can like cut it off before it has a chance to, and it's young and tender. It's not quite like asparagus, but you pick it and cut it at about the same time. Somebody I know made this delicious chutney with knotweed spears, and yeah, it was like a little savory, little sweet, little cinnamon, really good.
Little rhubarby.
Little rhubarby, yeah, same family. They're in the buckwheat family. Yeah. Yeah. Yes,
So you can take it to the first floor. How much do they?
Japanese stilt grass, Microstegium viminium. That's one of the ones that'll take over the forest floor. Yeah. All right, well, thank you very much,
Thank
because
you.
now it's gotten dark. I'll sleep. Which is, that's the after a warm day and then a dark room. Thank you all.
Oh, good.
So thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. On behalf of the Ecology Committee and Monhegan Associates, please support the Monhegan Associates. And we have 2 more talks. If you like this one, come to the next one on August 3rd. We will Doug Hitchcock's talk about birds.
Good.
And then the 13th to hear about the Monhegan water system.
That's gonna be really good.
Thank you.